Kane County Courthouse. James Harrington, one of Geneva's first permanent settlers, helped establish Geneva as the county seat. The establishment of Geneva as the county seat was important because it brought many lawyers, judges, and business people to our town who helped the community grow. The current and fourth courthouse opened in 1892. It cost $195,000 to build. The jail was located behind the courthouse and torn down in the late 1970s. The Soldiers and Sailors Monument was placed here in 1915 to honor the veterans of Kane County who served in the Mexican, Civil, and Spanish-American Wars. The two naval guns on either side were used during World War I and donated in 1925. One is from the USS Albany and the other from the USS New Orleans. There is a small plaque in front of the monument to indicate the site of the speech given by then Senator John F. Kennedy during the 1960 presidential campaign. Pindar Ward House. The lot was bought for $1 in 1850 from the county. The house was sold in 1867 to Pindar Ward for $2,000. He was a circuit clerk and recorder for Kane County, and known for his fine penmanship. Charles B. Wells House. The original house was built for attorney C.B. Wells in 1850 and remains to be one of the most distinguished buildings in Geneva. It was cited by the Historic Building Survey of 1934 as one of the finest examples of Greek Revival style. Charles Wells was a politically active lawyer. In 1849, he was elected circuit clerk and held the office for 4 years. He rose to the rank of major in the Civil War and after the war opened an office in Chicago. Later, Dr. Raymond Scott started Colonial Hospital here in 1908 until they outgrew it in 1925. Alexander Hat Shop. Ethel Alexander started filling orders for women's hats a week after she started attending a school for milliners in 1903 at the age of 22. She opened her first shop in 1905 on the east side of Batavia. When Geneva's 3rd Street commerce expanded in the 1920s, she moved to Geneva. The Berry House Shops. Built in 1853 by the Berry family, who ran a tailor shop out of the home for several years. Graham's Chocolates started out of this location. Sackett House. The home of Graham's Chocolate was originally a house built in 1868. How ironic it is when the owner of Graham's built on an addition, a tin of cocoa was discovered in the foundation. Fiora's Restaurant. At the corner of 3rd and Franklin, where Fiora's now sits, was originally believed to be a barn for the house directly east of them, belonging to Judge Isaac Wilson. Isaac Wilson Home. Judge Isaac Wilson built this home in 1878. In 1929, it became a residence for the nurses who worked at Community Hospital until 1993. Loveday House. Built in 1869 for a Chicago lawyer, Charles Smith, as his vacation home. William Loveday bought this house in 1870 for $5,000. This home is a rare example of Gothic Revival style. It served as a private residence until 1953 when it was sold to Esther Dames, a Chicago milliner. She turned the main level into a retail shop specializing in hats and dresses. Ladies could buy their outfit at the Little Traveler and walk across the street to have a custom hat made by Esther. We have many of her hats in our collection at the museum. Little Traveler. The Little Traveler was built in 1867 as a home. It was purchased by Kate and Edmund Raftery in 1919 and became a shop in the carriage house in 1922. They collected exotic treasures from around the world and sold them until room by room the whole house became a shop. Kate Raftery started the Little Traveler at age 52 with no previous business experience. Railroad. The first train came through Geneva in 1853. For many years, city officials tried to get a train depot, but it was the Geneva women's leaders who persuaded the president of Chicago and Northwest Railway to build an attractive brick depot here. The first large depot was built in 1892 for the Chicago World's Fair. The railroad also brought population growth as new settlers and immigrants traveled here to work and build homes. Fieldstone. Benjamin Dodson built this house in 1891 for $48,000. He wanted the house to look like a castle and used local limestone and prairie rock. You can see by the stone wall this property also originally took up the entire block. In 1925, the building became Community Hospital until 1991. W.D. Turner House. Built in 1855, this was the home of 3 generations of Turners. Walter was best remembered as the inventor of the famous Howell Company Geneva hand fluter, a unique ironing device for pressing pleats into fabric. Eastview. This grand house was built in 1851 by Augustus Harrington, a self-taught lawyer who became the state district attorney and was the eldest son of James and Charity Harrington. When first built, the house and the outbuilding took up the entire city block with the low stone wall circling the property. Walter House. This limestone house was built for John Walter in 1855. In the 1920s, Kate Raftery started a River Lane cleanup project and had the Wilson brothers restore and enlarge this home. It has a natural spring in the back, which made this area great for growing anything. Conant House. This limestone cottage was built in 1844 by early settlers, Ebenezer Conant and his son Augustus. It is one of the oldest homes in Geneva. Augustus was the first minister of the Unitarian Church. Telephone Building. This neoclassic building was built in 1917 for the Chicago Telephone Company to serve Geneva, Batavia, and St. Charles. At the time, there were nearly 2,000 subscribers in the Tri-Cities. 24 women were employed as operators. Geneva was one of the first towns west of Chicago to have long-distance service. City Hall. Geneva City Hall was built in 1912 by the Wilson brothers. It contained offices for the city clerk, mayor, an auditorium, jail, and housed the fire department. Geneva Public Library. The city started building the library in 1896. Then they ran out of money, and it sat empty for 10 years with no roof. Residents discovered that Andrew Carnegie was funding libraries across the United States. He donated $7,500. It is not a Carnegie library since the plans were not approved by him. The original building had a slate roof and some of the walls are up to 3 feet thick. Unitarian Church. First church built in Geneva in 1843 and is one of our oldest buildings. Originally, the church was much smaller. When the church expanded, the pews and stained glass windows were brought in from a church that had burnt in the Chicago fire in 1871. The bell in the belfry, besides being used for times of worship, was once used as the fire bell for the city of Geneva. Post Office. The current Geneva Post Office was built in 1938. We have had at least 4 other post offices in Geneva. Geneva's first rural mail delivery started in February 15th of 1905. The route covered 17 square miles. Next time you are in the post office, be sure to check out the mural painted in 1940 by Manuel Bromberg called Fish Fry in the Park. Howell Building. Built in 1866, this building has always been a business, never a residence. It was once a cafe on the Lincoln Highway. The Lincoln Highway was a transcontinental route from New York to San Francisco. Geneva was chosen to be a part of the Lincoln Highway route in 1912. Geneva History Museum. Originally built as the Kane County Abstract Company in 1906, the museum bought this building and moved from Wheeler Park in 2004. The Geneva History Museum is passionate about collecting, preserving, and educating the community about Geneva's rich history. The Geneva History Museum is an independent, non-for-profit organization that relies on private donations and does not receive any tax dollars. If you would like more information about our other tours, please go to our website at genevahistorymuseum.org.